Hi, everyone here and around the world. At Contact in the Desert in Palm Springs, California, where I was a speaker May 30th to June 5th, there was a lot of talk about the ongoing fight between the Pentagon and Congress over finally telling the truth that we aren't alone in this universe. Currently, this May 17th, 2024 UK Daily Mail headline sums up Congress's pushback against the Pentagon that keeps insisting there are no extraterrestrial beings and ET craft in our solar system. It's all just secret human apologies or technologies. Meanwhile, military, aerospace, and government sources are telling congressional representatives the opposite, that alien life forms and their advanced technologies are interacting with Earth now and have for millions of years. My guess is that some smart congressional representatives went to the archivists at the National Archives in College Park, Maryland, and asked for help in the ongoing internecine warfare between the Pentagon and Congress. Well, whatever happened, 3 weeks ago, in mid-May 2024, the National Archives and Records Administration, also known as NARA, put into action the UFO Disclosure Amendment to the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, originally outlined in Executive Order 13526, that was signed into law on December 29th, 2009. This is 2024. This is a law that was signed as executive order in 2009, right after Barack Obama was elected U.S. President. Executive Order 13526 orders that all classified material over 25 years old will be considered for, quote, automatic declassification, close quote. The trick word there is considered, which allows no's and yeses. In the context of that 2009 executive order, NARA archivists have now issued guidelines mandating that all UFO or UAP documents be delivered in electronic formats with detailed metadata for inclusion in a new searchable database to be made available to the public. Well, now federal agencies have until October 20th, 2024, just in a few months, to deliver every document, audio, and video they have about UFOs to the U.S. government's NARA for distribution to the public. That includes the Pentagon's Aero Office that in March of 2024 was claiming it, quote, found no verifiable evidence that the U.S. government or private industry has ever had access to extraterrestrial technology, close quote. And you and I know that's a lie. Meanwhile, another question discussed at Contact in the Desert was, are there more UFO abductions and contacts now in the increasing chaos of Earth climate changes and the increasing stress on humans everywhere? One book came up several times. The Blue Star Fulfilling Prophecy of the Hopi, first published 17 years ago in 2007 by Miriam Delicado. It's now available in 5 languages: English, Spanish, Japanese, French, and Portuguese. The book evolved from her 1988 abduction experience with tall, blonde-haired Nordic ETs. She would come to understand that her first contact by the tall, blonde-haired extraterrestrials was when she was a baby, and later in an abduction at age 4. These particular events were not in her consciousness until later in her life. Her biography says, quote, the trigger that brought these occurrences back into her consciousness, meaning Miriam's, was an alien abduction experience while on a road trip in 1988. Her journey leads her to the Four Corners area of the southwestern United States, And since that time, there have been many other encounters with tall, blonde aliens. The relationship that developed between Miriam and the aliens became one of teacher-student, and finally a culmination into that of emissary, like an ambassador between the tall Nordics and her and other humans. As a direct request from the tall blondes and to fulfill the role of emissary, she wrote Blue Star, Fulfilling Prophecy, close quote. And this week, I talked with Miriam Delicado about whether she has had evolving Blue Star prophecy information in this increasingly dangerous 2024 to 2030 decade that many people are feeling is the end times. I asked Miriam if the seemingly increasing Earth chaos is what her 2007 book, Blue Star Fulfilling Prophecy, warns about, and if the tall Nordics are going to help humans to survive.
Linda, that is an amazing overview of many, many aspects. So I want to respond to some things right off the top that I think are very, very important. First of all, back in 2009, executive order, I think the word that we need to look at here is that they considered things for D-class. Now, the fact that this order has come out to say by October 20th, 2024, that the audio and video is going to be released, to me, it's a non-starter. There's not going to be anything outstanding in those documents because they are pointing towards very specific programs, from my understanding, and data collection hubs. They're saying that they're going to release the information from. But here's what I know, is that extraterrestrial contact has been happening for the beginning of time itself. And that is a fact. And we'll get into that a little bit in a minute here. So what we need to really focus on for this big data dump is what is the argument between, as you say, the Pentagon and Congress. Congress is very, very limited in their ability to directly interface with different government agencies. And the Pentagon has access to what they call black projects that are even off the radar of Congress and the American people and humanity of the entire world. Mm-hmm. If they were released to the public, it could become very, very dangerous for humanity in order to be able to unfold the mandates of those particular projects. This is all coming from me. It's not coming from anywhere else, anything else, no research, nothing. This is just the way that it is. When we're talking about extraterrestrial contact, when we're talking about the technology and the level of technology that these beings have, it is so far advanced that there is no possible way that human beings could even comprehend how it actually works. Because it's only been within the last few years, as an example, that people are beginning to understand in mainstream, I'm talking about all across the board, all people, that we have the ability to have telepathy, that we can communicate without words, that going into meditation, for example, has the ability to change the physics of the reality that surrounds us. These are scientific facts. Well, when it comes to the UFOs and the interchange between humanity and these beings and these craft, the level of science that's behind it is so far advanced that, quite honestly, most human beings, even the top scientists and the most intelligent people on the planet, would barely be able to touch the surface of understanding how it works.
Would you please explain what happened in your life that gives you this insight?
So in 1988, it was when I was 22 years old and I had an encounter on a highway in British Columbia, Canada, where I was actually taken on board a UFO for 3 hours with tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed extraterrestrials. And there were also very short, about 4.5 feet tall extraterrestrials, had big, round, black eyes and very childlike, who took me by the hand out of that car and walked me down the highway to a much larger craft that was waiting there to take me. And so I had this 3 hours of massive download of the past, present, and future of humanity. And within that, the most extraordinary information that was shared with me was really about the understanding of the physics of how our reality functions. And I'm not just talking about Earth. I'm talking about its relationship with these extraterrestrials, as well as the other interdimensions that we exist in, how they all connect together. So I went from being a very average, I guess I had gifts, psychic gifts my whole life, even as a extraordinarily young child. But in 1988, they exploded after this experience. And what sets my case apart from many others is that at the end of this experience with these beings for 3 hours, they said to me, "You will remember this. You will remember." And they gave me a mandate to unfold. And that mandate is very simple. In its most basic terms, protect life. Protect life, both now and for the future. Because you see, they have the ability to understand and see the future, the present, and the past. And because once you understand the physics of how it all connects together, you can see how what we do today affects the future of tomorrow. In many ways, it's extraordinarily complex. And in other ways, it's extraordinarily simple. So they gave me warnings about the future. This was in 1988. And it was in 2007, 2008 that I published the book, Blue Star Fulfilling Prophecy, as a way of getting part of this message out to the world to say, look, this is real. These experiences that many people around the planet are having are real. There are many people out there that talk about the subject matter that make it difficult for people like myself, because when they don't remember something or they don't know something, they'll fill in the gaps. Mm-hmm. They'll fill in the gaps with a story. Makes it very, very messy. But with all of this information coming out from the government in the last couple of years, really, it's making it where people are starting to truly question what it is that's happening. So I have this amazing connection directly with them, and I still do have, I've had orbs that I've seen, and when the orbs come, I sometimes receive a message from them, all sorts of different ways that I'm still having contact.
And could I ask here, the smaller ones that were with the tall blondes, are those artificial intelligence totally?
I have been asked that in the past, and I can't fully answer. What I can share with you to give insight is that they appeared robotic and childlike in a way. Childlike in the sense that they just didn't seem like they were under their own influence in many ways.
And I've had people in the government say that a lot of the small ones are almost like universal AI used by several different ETs, whether that's true or not. But it leads to another important question. I have been exposed to people in military and in science who have worked side by side with what they call tall whites. I wonder if you can tell me if you make a distinction between the tall blondes that you interacted with and the tall whites that are supposed to be the color of chalk, including their hair, very light eyes, and that they can grow to be 10 feet or maybe slightly more, where the tall Nordics tend to top out around 8 feet. Do you know of a difference between those two categories of humanoids that many people in the abduction syndrome are confused about whether they were blonde Nordics or tall whites?
This is a fantastic question because it's one that I've often tried to assist people to understand. The tall whites that are often referred to by many people, especially in terms of working with different government projects, I've heard of them being over at Area 51, for example. They are not the same beings as the ones that I had contact with, these ones that I call the tall blondes. The tall whites are much thinner. I personally have not had a direct interaction with them, but I am aware of them. They are more interactive directly with humans here on the planet, but they are not the same at all. The tall blondes are who I refer to as them. The other name that I give them is the great ancestors. And there's a very specific reason for that. Okay, it's because in the beginning, when humanity was being formed on this planet, they were here. They were already here. Okay, some of these other beings came later. And I suspect that the tall whites came later. The great ancestors, or tall blondes, have been here since the beginning, helping to form, it's like terraforming the planet. But they do not interfere in the free will of human beings. They do not interfere in that. It's a very complex, very long, big story, but they have a great connection spiritually. Just to give it a term, an understanding, the tall blondes are very spiritual in nature, meaning they serve the creation. They serve creation to ensure that creation continues to evolve. They protect creation. They nurture creation. They also influence. Here's the other thing that might scare people, but they influence creation over time, very slowly, by assisting humanity, for example, to upgrade DNA patterns within the genome of the planet, of the human beings, of the genome. And they specifically, I asked them a question when I was with them in 1988. I said, are you God? Because the amount of information that they gave me about the past, the present, and the future of the Earth itself, and all of the physics that they explained about how creation was made and how it exists, these beings must be God. Is this God? Like, where am I? It was a very confusing time, as you can imagine, being on that craft. And their reply was, no, we are not God. And they said, we seek to know God the way that you do, but our understanding of God is so much more. It's so vast. They could never explain it to me because of their conceptual understanding of life itself.
Did they ever say, we're going to take you in our craft to another dimension because that is the way they travel? We're in the third. The advanced ETs, as I understand it from people in aerospace who have worked with them, is that if they want to go 100 light years from Earth to another solar system, they don't go through space in this third dimensional universe. They go outside of this third dimension into a fourth, fifth, whatever the dimension is. Their computers calculate the target 100 light years from Earth. And then they come back into the third dimension with the computer already having only one destination. It is the one programmed in the previous dimension, that when they come into this dimension, there is a frequency alignment where the craft can only go one place in this universe. And it's 100 light years from Earth, and it's the planet that they want to go to. Does that seem somewhat reasonable to what you've understood?
It would, and let me explain a little bit of the physics. Now, I'm not a physicist. I don't know. I don't have a big education, but I have sat with physicists in the past and explained to them how time travel works and how travel works within the universe itself. They've been shocked at what I've shared. Now, do I have the terminology of the physics? No, but let me explain it in super simple terms. When we think about a rock, okay, a rock has a certain, quote, frequency to it, meaning it's very, very dense and it's heavy. The molecules that make up a rock are formed in a very specific way. as opposed to, let's say, something like air, which is, again, it's all made up of the same energy. It's how it is compacted or formed, okay? And everything has a vibratory level to it. Everything that people talk about, vibration, good vibes, this and that in the spiritual world. Well, science talks about vibration as well, because that's what everything is made from, right?
Frequency.
So what happens is when they do time travel, you can do time travel or you can do distance travel, and they're slightly different in how they're formatted within their, let's say, computer systems of the UFOs. Now, only certain craft are able to do those long distances, and only certain craft are able to exist in other dimensional realities. So this is often why we hear about, for example, UFOs that are run on telepathy, because those craft are formed out of a specific type of energy that is within the universe that has the ability to transform itself, for example, between rock and air. You communicate with the energy and it transforms itself. Do you see what I'm saying?
By frequency. Frequency is somehow the magic of what every relationship is.
Everything.
Right.
Absolutely everything. These extraterrestrials, some of them, not all of them, have the ability to manipulate the energy around the craft. And by doing so, it enables them to be able to travel great distances. So, for example, one part of the craft might be programmed to have a certain vibration frequency, and by doing so, it's going to be pulled to wherever it is that it needs to go.
Or a match in the specific frequency that the computer is basically saying that every atom and molecule in the craft has only one destination. It's matching frequency.
Yes, exactly.
What is that you are either dreaming, seeing, sensing between 2024 and perhaps 2030? There is a sense of something dangerous, and I think you implied that the tall Nordics in 1988, that they also have warned you about this particular time, which is related to the Blue Star prophecy. Can you help us all understand that?
Well, the primary reason that I have had these contacts, and I've had them since even at birth, they began. The reason that I have had them was to give these warnings to humanity for the future. So yes, we are in that very precarious, volatile window of time. Now, I want to make something super clear. In the beginning, there was an actual timeline where if certain markers were not fulfilled, if certain planetary changes within humanity and within the planet itself were not fulfilled, we weren't going to make it at all. The future was actually going to be destroyed. Human life was going to end. Now, that time frame was set, and I can tell you that for a while there was this slippage. I don't know why. I just know that there was a slip in time, and we were set back by 4 years. So we are now 4 years behind this, let's say, prophecy, and we still have a window. If that did not happen, whatever happened there, I have no idea. But something happened on the planet. Something happened within the universe and the creation of all life, where we were given an extra 4 years. So to fulfill what it is that we need to do in order to save the planet and save life for the future.
I have been told by people who have worked in aerospace that the tall whites can manipulate time. They go into time to manipulate to solve problems. It might have been an action on the part of the tall whites, which is why they are so fascinating, but we know so little about them.
Linda, what you just shared there is probably one of the most important parts of this conversation that we could possibly have today. It is not just these, quote, beings from other dimensions and worlds and realities and existences. Human beings are the most powerful technology on the planet. Human beings have the ability, if they're able to tap into their technology of understanding the universe and being able to work with the universal energies that surround them and that they are themselves. We have the ability to manipulate or encourage the energy that surrounds us. So, what we're really talking about is the fact that one of the things the star beings told me was that if and when destruction was going to come to the planet, if humanity could come together and focus on the positive aspect of whatever it is that they were trying to accomplish, and it was done in unison, that they would then in turn completely shift the planet and move it further into the progression of the DNA upgrades and changes that will be needed for the brain, our brains, to be able to calculate and process the information that we would then have access to. So this is actually the most important part of this conversation, because if you want to talk about everything, this is what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the very serious warnings that were given to me about this time that we are in right now, the time of chaos, when they told me that everyone would lose their minds, that they would lose touch with reality. And the reality is not on the news. The reality is who we are, and what we have access to, and how we interface with everything that truly exists, and why we are here.
And isn't this a reason, what you've just said, of why it is so important that the governments of this earth that keep repressing everyone from knowing that we are definitely not alone, that there have been non-human intelligences interacting on this planet for millions of years, that we are at a crucial time in which there may be something catastrophic still out there. And what if all humanity was told the whole truth at the same time, at the same hour by satellites, and that it would shift the entire human mind, may be enough to prevent or change destruction in the future?
Well, in 1988, I started to say to people, the reason why this is important is this next statement is very, very critical to understand, and then look with that understanding on anything within the UFO community and what's happening in the world. It all connects, okay? They said to me, one day, every human being alive will know that everything that we experience here, everything that exists, is tied to these extraterrestrials. Everything. And why is that important? Because of what I said prior, where human beings are the most powerful technology that is available on this planet. This is the key to everything, to understanding what the fight is about behind the scenes, who controls the flow of information about these beings. Who controls the information is the one that controls the world.
In addition to Miriam's website, you can sign up for Miriam's newsletter and receive a free download copy. Plus, she's giving opportunities to ask a question, and each week she will answer one or two questions in each newsletter. And you can get the paperback of her book in addition to the links that we showed in the broadcast. Remember that her book is Blue Star, Fulfilling Prophecy, and it is always in paperback at Amazon.com. Yesterday, June 11th, I received through Ian Holling in England a message that resonates so strongly with Miriam Delicado's telepathic download from the tall blonde-haired Nordics that I want to share with you what Ian got to me. And why I'm doing this is it seems so important at this time when there is so much unexpected, surprising violence at so many levels, small and large, in a world in which perhaps if Miriam's experiences with the tall blonde Nordics is pointing in the right direction, they are concerned about what is happening on the earth and to us. And I'm going to share this with the idea that if you all, any of you, have an experience with a being or light or something that you feel might actually be trying to interact with you in a positive way, that some of you I know are getting some kind of guidance through lights, through dreams. Well, this is in a category of a piece of paper yesterday that got to me with invaluable content and was so resonant with what I was editing and recording with Miriam. Quote, I've had many interactions with a large number of our ET galactic neighbors while out into secluded areas here in the state of Oregon, where I live. I've learned a lot from our ET galactic neighbors. They communicated to me that they, ET non-humans, have reintroduced life back onto this planet 27 times over its long history. That is very consistent with what Miriam was shown by the tall Nordics that stopped her in 1988, took her to a huge craft for 3 hours, and as she explained, downloaded telepathically into her mind this huge packed history of this planet having the interaction of extraterrestrials, such as the blonde Nordics and the tall whites and the grays, and the list goes on and on. And here is another person who wrote yesterday, very similar. He says, I've learned a lot from our ET galactic neighbors. They communicated to me that they, the ET non-humans, have 27 times over the history of Earth reintroduced life into every area, and they also communicated to me that the ET non-humans, are responsible for the creation of humans. Also, another message to Miriam Delicado from the blonde Nordics in 1988, that all those 27 times that they were interacting with the Earth was genetic manipulation of DNA and genomes in already evolving. And then the question, when did they start? The answer I've been given more than once was about Homo erectus 2.4 million years ago. That's when one or more of the experiments by extraterrestrials on this planet began with the manipulation of DNA in already evolving primates. I think it's fascinating, and all of us deserve to know everything there is to know. He also writes, they also communicated to me that they, the ET non-humans, have lots of images, videos, and eyewitnesses to my interactions with ET non-humans. Yes, ETs disclosing to a human on Earth about other ETs that they are reporting they know abducted this writer. Humans have staggeringly overpopulated this planet. The planet that we humans have come to know won't last for long. Our ET galactic neighbors live on other planets. Some live on massive ships. They don't refer to this galaxy as the Milky Way. Teleportation is very real. There is the non-physical energy universe, and there is the physical matter universe. Everything that exists in the physical matter universe is nothing more than animated energy. Exactly what the whole last video was about with Miriam. Everything that exists in the physical matter universe is nothing more than animated energy. You are not your body. You are an energy being that merely happens to be in possession of a physical matter body or container. And here is the last paragraph that seems to resonate with so many things that are showing up now in cell phones and ads that are in cell phones, having to do with, quote, what he's saying here, you can't die. Only your physical matter body will die. The recycling of souls is the mechanics, he says. I've had it as the machinery in other information. The recycling of souls is the mechanics, I say machinery, of the universe. Our ET non-human galactic neighbors are well aware that they are energy beings in possession of physical matter bodies. Their technologies are based on that knowledge, and our galactic space-traveling neighbors are fully telepathic, exactly as Miriam Delicado has experienced and has reported. And now, I would like to bring in Ian in from the UK for Q&A and ask him if he would manage a poll of all of you about this question. What do you sense, intuit, about the rest of this decade of 2024 to 2030? Apocalypse or no apocalypse? So on that, I'm going to transition to Ian to start with your live questions while he and Eric do the poll with you, all of you, and I will start doing Q&A from whatever Ian has ready for questions or comments.
Hi, Linda. Thank you very much. That was a fascinating report, and I am familiar with the book, with Miriam's book. We'll post the details as well in the description below the video. It's a very good book, and I do recommend it. Yeah. There's actually a lot more information in the book that people will need to read to get it in full context.
Right.
And one of the things, and we're preparing the poll at the moment, so we'll be posting that up as well, and we'll keep you informed as we go. One of the things I wanted to mention was about the Miriam was first contacted while she was a baby and abducted, I think, for the first time at age 4. And those particular events were not in her consciousness until later on in her life. And then the trigger that brought those back into her consciousness was the alien abduction while on the road trip in 1988, where she was 22 years of age, which is very interesting because it ties in with what other people are talking about. Tom the Man TV is with us in the chat today, and he says he wonders if alien implants actually block people's memories, if that is one of their roles, to block certain memories, and why the memories are suppressed for so long and then released later on in life.
Well, let me insert here, as I mentioned in my report earlier tonight, that Miriam did tell me about her being abducted when she was a baby in 4 years. And that what we talked about also is that this was such an extraordinary experience for me and for her to have an in-depth interview. I went for a very long time. It was 2 to 3 hours, and cut it down. And now I ask her, what about doing a really deep dive through the lens of 2024 into what happened to you when you were a baby, when you were a 4-year-old, the whole evolution, and what happened especially in 1988 on that road where the craft literally came down on the road and stopped her. And she thinks it would be really valuable to do a deep dive with me, asking anything and everything that occurs to me from the time that she had her first memories. I really think there is something important about the fact that this no longer feels like people are going to have the CIA coming up on their doorsteps and warning them never to talk to Linda Moulton Howe, as has happened in the past. It feels like that there is a momentum that is definitely beginning to move and increase with people to, whether they were military and they have to worry about non-disclosure agreements, or they are humans who have had many different types of life, but they have all been afraid to even bring up seeing a UFO, let alone going into one. And this is the change that I feel is upon us and is so important. The more humans can talk with each other honestly, the faster, hopefully, that we will evolve finally to the worldwide headline. We're not alone in this universe. We never have been. We are a genetically manipulated and created species. The big question is, what is behind that evolution, that DNA manipulation? And if the tall Nordics, the tall whites, some of the grays, and on the list, now is the time for us to be hearing from fellow humans who have gone on some of these journeys very honestly and straightforwardly. And Miriam Delicado is one of those people. So if all goes well, in another month or two, she and I will do another deep dive specifically into 1988, which I think, even if you have read about it in her book, there's nothing like being able to talk with an intelligent person about the true details of everything that they experienced and do it in a conversation. So right now, Ian, I hope that gave you some time on the poll, and to know that in the future, we will be able to talk with the amazing Miriam Delicado again.
That's right. We're running the poll at the moment, and I'll just tell you what the poll says. It says, what do you sense or intuit about the rest of this decade to 2030? Apocalypse or no apocalypse? It's currently running at 33% apocalypse, 67% no apocalypse. So we've got that 1/3, 2/3 split there at the moment.
Well, let's hope that the 2/3 are like an antenna to us in the future, that they are signaling that maybe something is changing. Remember, Miriam herself said that she was told or shown by the tall blondes that there had been a 4-year slip, is what she called it, slippage, in the timeline of an apocalypse that would have been happening around 2026, and now may be pushed to 2030. And how the monitoring and the slip works, she herself does not know. She just knows that she became aware that they were telling her, or there was a communication that there was a slip in the time that may have been because she feels strongly that there is not a desire to see anything happen to this planet or humans, but that there are forces circulating these patterns of this incredible evolution of a universe in which there are these dark and light energies that are competing. And that right now we are coming up to what some people might call a node, N-O-D-E, a node in time, a node in the evolution of our universe, where a whole bunch of things might occur and change. And that, in a way, makes this exciting to get together each week to share. And I extend an invitation to any of you who have had interactions like face-to-face with beings, day or night, bedroom or out walking or whatever, so that we all can share in learning together some of the complex details and perhaps some of the interiors. I would say one of the things that I've noticed in the last few months is that I have had descriptions of the interiors of very large craft. Unlike earlier days when everything was small and it wasn't the way it's being described now. And whatever these huge, gigantic craft indicate, I welcome your insights as well. And Ian, don't you feel in a strange way that there is something comforting, like the agape lens, that at least 2/3 of our audience tonight feel that there won't be an apocalypse?
That's right. It does give us good hope for the future. But I want to bring you right up to date as well, Linda, with a message in our chat that's of very high interest to us. Heather Quinn says, I had an encounter in Mosul, Iraq, 2004. The ET looked like Sumerian figures. We were doing a sweep for IEDs. The ET pulled me away from my dead team. I woke up inside a tube. That sounds like a fascinating encounter.
Woke
we would
up.
certainly like to hear more.
Yeah, Ian, woke up inside a tube.
A tomb. TOMB.
Tomb. Okay. I thought maybe
Yeah.
they were talking about the 106-page chapter in my book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, where people do wake up inside of a tube, TUBE. But this is a tomb, TOMB. Well, why were they waking up inside the tomb?
Well, we'd like to find out more.
Yeah.
And I'd certainly like to talk with Heather Quinn. Heather, if you're listening, please contact us at ian@earthfiles.com and earthfiles@earthfiles.com. And we can follow up with you. But yes, we had fascinating discussions. We're fresh out of Contact in the Desert with many people who had their own experiences and had and were able to share their experiences. And like you say, seeing the pictures of the tubes as well, people in tubes triggered certain memories for certain people. And we, from the comments in the audience tonight, again back to Tom the Man, he says the drawings send chills up my spine because it means these encounters I've had were not imagined. And that seems to be the familiar a sense that a lot of people had when they looked at some of the images that other people had
Right.
created and put on display at Contact.
Right. And I think also what we're being taught is there's been a lot of confusion about, well, what are tall whites versus what are tall Nordics? And it's becoming clearer and clearer they are two completely different humanoid groups, but they apparently collaborate together fine. But they are different. And I remember my first, I think this goes back to around the 1983 time period, when I had signed the contract with Home Box Office in New York and was organizing to do a documentary that would be about a whole bunch of things interacting between military, ETs, and technology. And I got sent, they were like, not architectural drawings exactly, but they were very detailed. And it was from a man who he said, I've seen you in a tube in a UFO. And I was so taken aback. And then he started sketching, and all of this is in my book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2. And over the time since then, I no longer have qualms or anything about it. Whatever the system is that has been evolving, it has definitely involved DNA manipulation in the evolution of Homo sapien, which is current humanity. And that the tube issue is a fascinating one. And the more we learn about it, the more we may actually begin to understand what some goals are and maybe protections to help humans pass this 8 billion and counting on a planet that seems to be changing very rapidly in terms of what is happening to the climate system and perhaps even earthquakes. And for us to be able to learn together has always been what I felt would be a big help to our planet. And now I think that there are signs that really solid work is beginning to be reported. And you all can help me by what happens in your areas. Let me know. We're always looking for really firsthand, present video on a tripod, hopefully. So Thanks, Ian, a lot.
Yeah, and I just want to acknowledge our super chats tonight. And first of all, I'd like to say as well, just noticed all the countries that are checking in and watching us this evening. And please remember to hit those likes, people, and sign up and subscribe as well. We're on our way to 269,000 viewers who are subscribed.
269,000 views. Thank you.
We're almost there, yes. We've got Australia, New Zealand, Brazil, Argentina, UK, Chile, and many places in Europe tuned in as well.
Help us get over this week, you guys. Help us.
Yes.
We're coming up to 269,000.
Here are the super chats. Moonbird, Tarantina, Joe Rinker, C.A. Beaver Fordham, Janet Craft, Helmet Boy, Yin Yang Glow, Amin's Love, Whisper of Love, and Yin Yang Glow has a question for Linda. When you had the opportunity to personally sit down and speak with Zecharia Sitchin, did you talk about the 12th planet's return to our solar system? And if so, could that be why you said his beautiful blue eyes express deep concern for us in the future? Would the passing of the 12th planet lead to some sort of disruption of our sun or some ELE?
Zecharia Sitchin and I met at his office in Rockefeller Center in New York City in approximately the year 1983. And I had been able to write him before that meeting. We had not met at conferences. And therefore, everything about him was all I had was, or not all, but the work that he had done having to do with investigating the Anunnaki and other world and report about it. And when I went with the taxi, and the taxi pulled up in front of the address that I had been given as where the meeting would take place. I'm in Rockefeller Center. I come through the doors. There's a whole bunch of people to check your ID. I finally there were banks of elevators. I was taken by somebody over to an elevator. I was holding the written address and the office address that he had given me on the phone. I rise up in the elevator. When I come out, there's no one. It's just me in a marble floor and marble walls and walnut doors. Oh my God, it was so beautiful. And a few windows that you could see out onto Manhattan. And I knocked on the door, and a secretary opened the door. And when we went inside, the office was all glass at one half, looking out on Manhattan. It was breathtaking. And the secretary said, Mr. Sitchin is just finishing up some work. He will be here in just a couple of minutes. And I thought, wow, I wonder how does he sustain this incredible office as a researcher in matters related to ancient history connected to ETs. And she came. I got up. I followed her. Now this is into another, you have to go through another door. So it's a big outer office and a big inner office. And we walk through. I meet him. I shake hands. He had these crystal blue eyes, glasses that magnified them a little. And he invited me to sit down at a desk that had some writing materials on it where he had been working. And he started asking me questions about animal mutilations. And the animal mutilations led to human abductions. And then I, at that point, had not at all the quantity of material that I have now, both in experience and what I have read, about the evolution of life under controlled extraterrestrial programs on this planet, and confronting or accepting that the likelihood of there being extraterrestrial civilizations that would have based on our planet at various times would be almost logical and not something to be laughed at as people did back then. And it was Zecharia Sitchin who was always associated with the 12th planet, or the idea that there might have been something today we would say in the Anunnaki category that was either based out there or that they had sculpted in stone in the Middle East, solar systems, suns. You all are familiar, I'm sure. And so all of that at that time was not as, the information was not as extensive between us as investigators then as I think it is now. And this is why I did this prologue. I was listening to what he was talking to me about in terms of his current investigations at that time. He had some papers and a book and various things on this desk. And I finally decided I might not ever be there or be able to talk with him again, that I needed to ask him the question that had burned in my mind ever since the first handshake that I had with Zecharia Sitchin at a conference before the meeting in Rockefeller. And I said, "Sir, I would really like to ask you a question in respect. I'm asking this question with respect." And I remember saying that and stressing it. And he looked at me with his crystal blue light eyes through those glasses, and he said, "Please." I said, "Sir, have you ever in the past or currently now, do you work for an intelligence agency of the United States, such as the Central Intelligence Agency or Defense Intelligence Agency?" And there was a silence, like the air came out of the room. And I'll never forget, I didn't take my eyes away from his. He didn't take his eyes away from mine. And we just sat there looking eye to eye with that question hanging in the air. And I remember telling a dear friend about the moment and saying, I think that the stare at each other went on for at least 2 minutes. And when he spoke, his voice was softer and he said, "What a peculiar question, Linda. If I did work for those agencies, I wouldn't be able to tell you. And therefore your question would have no meaning because I would never be able to answer you. And if I do work or did work for the intelligence agencies, I would never tell you or anyone else. So you have asked me a question today that I cannot answer." Never forgotten it. I really admired and respected him immensely. And I think that there is new astronomy work that is going on having to do with what is the big planet-sized mass between the Kuiper Belt and the Oort cloud of our solar system that was picked up, I think it's almost a decade now, by Michael Brown at the University of Southern California. I interviewed him 3 or 4 times on this issue when I was working with Art and later Coast to Coast with George. And I've tried to keep up with reports that have come out, and I think that they all boil down to this fascinating question that so far, at least nothing's been published. How can something the size of a planet be out at the edge of our solar system of our planets. And that the scientists know that something is there by perturbations in comet paths and all sorts of things. But the last interview that I had the ability to discuss this with Professor Brown, I asked him, I said, how could something be out there that is huge? And if I understand correctly, you have been trying to look at it in infrared in the Keck Observatory in Hawaii, which is one of the best in the world, and you're not seeing infrared. And he said, that's absolutely right. We're not sure either, but we are going to continue trying to find what it is, and infrared is one of the tools that I'm working with. Well, that was a few years ago, and now we're in the middle of 2024, and there have been recent reports about this huge mass out between the Kuiper Belt and the Oort cloud that nobody can see. What is that about? So in the the mysteries and the complexities of the universe that we are in, and the other intelligences that are coming and going in our own solar system, and some of the frustrated astrophysicists and astronomers who are encountering puzzles that they don't know how to solve. It's making our universe more fascinating, and I have never felt that I wanted about 6 brains so I could read everything every day and keep up. Are you there?
Yeah, I am. I'm losing communication a little bit here, Linda, but I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time to be alive, and didn't we have such a great feeling at Contact in the Desert?
Yeah, we had great.
Amazing.
Yeah, we had great contact.
I met up with so many people as well in the actual experiencer groups as well, and I actually had the honour and the privilege of sitting with Whitley, who joined us as an experiencer group, which allows people free, safe space to share their own experiences. And we actually packed out the room with people, and we followed up on quite a lot of those experiences separately, ongoing in the ongoing discussions afterwards.
Which is the strangest subject that you encountered?
Oh, well, in the experiencer groups, we have to be very mindful that some people are breaking their stories for the first time. But we actually managed to uncover some stories, some very strange things that happened, were synchronicities that actually linked back with myself and another experiencer I'm working with. We attended a live regression by Yvonne Smith, and that was fascinating.
Yes.
But the synchronicities that people recognized and triggered in that room were amazing.
Well, don't you think it's fascinating that, out of curiosity, I would ask the only question that he couldn't answer?
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So we invite people as well to still contact us with their own experiences, as you said, to reiterate what you said, and to contact us at earthfiles@earthfiles.com. We've got a comment here that says, hold on a moment. People are talking about Linda. This is from Joe Riniker. Linda, what do you believe some of the alien species think about the way humans like to entertain ourselves? The scary movies, sports boxes, or amusement parks. Is there an example of the ET's take on our own amusement?
I personally don't know of a single person of the 3,000 that I've interviewed in the human abduction syndrome. I have never heard a single comment by anybody about an ET reacting to what we would watch or see or do as entertainment. It's never, in my life and work, it's never come up.
No, I haven't encountered that at all, really. That whether or not, people seem to have specific encounters and specific messages, etc. Don K. Johnson talks about the 1972 missing time in a field event. He says he doesn't remember being on a ship, but afterwards he felt the reason for being for the encounter was to document the landscape in photos to be used after destruction to repair the planet.
Well, I've heard variations on that and just realized it's 8:41 and the time went by so fast I wasn't even thinking about the clock. I know that I have gone over and hope that hasn't been a problem for any of you, but we are ending on a note that I hope every one of you will follow up, and that is, if you have had an experience and you have not ever reported it, please let us know. And that wherever you live, whatever is happening, there are daily stories that go on having to do with UFOs, ETs, landings, and they don't get picked up by international press. Help us help you by sending us if you think that there is a really important local story in whatever country, wherever you are. That's one thing I feel would be great to increase, would be the connections between here and the Earthfiles YouTube channel and Brazil and parts of Europe and in parts of South America and Africa and all over. And that's one of the ways that we can help teach each other and learn while we're on a planet where the question, are we alone in this universe? Governments refuse to answer with the truth. It's just so upside down and crazy. Anyway, a big agape hug to all of you. And let's hold on that the 2/3 tonight who are envisioning no apocalypse in the future, that they help weigh the scales in this enormous cosmic mystery that we are all living in, this universe, and what comes next. I love you.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.